Hello everybody, I'm Nora Burrows. Today I want to make some of these cool string blocks. You know, we all have leftover long thin pieces in our scraps from various projects, so I thought this would be a great way to utilize them. I actually did not make these blocks. This is part of a guild block exchange, so I need to make two today, and then I thought we could kind of lay them out, look at different configurations and patterns that we can make from these pieces. But let's make a couple. Let me show you how to make a couple of these. The first thing we're going to do is to cut a square 6 7/8. Here's my square 6 7/8, and now I'm going to cut that on the diagonal, so I will have two triangles. I think we're actually going to end up with 4 blocks here. I think I had said we were going to make 2, but we're going to make 4. All right, I have my 2 triangles here. I'm going to put one aside, and now I need to cut some strips that are 1 3/8 inch wide. I'm going to use different colors, patterns. You can see here, again, I didn't make this one, a different guild member did. I really love that fabric so much. So I'm going to cut some strips 1 3/8 inches wide. And I'm going to lay this on top to make sure that I made it long enough. Then I'll take my next strip and lay it on top to make sure that's long enough. Now I'm going to sew these together before I add on extra strips because I'm going to have seam allowance, and I want to make sure that I'm not making anything too small. So I'm going to sew these together. I added on an additional piece here because I actually cut this piece too short. So my recommendation was this one is the one that used to be my longest piece, and then this was going to be a little bit shorter. So my recommendation is to cut your pieces a little bit longer than you think you need them. So now what I'm going to do is take my black triangle and put this on top of it. I'll flip it over. Line your edges up, and I'm going to cut not right along the edge of the black. I'm going to leave a little bit of space because I'll want to trim this up at the end. But I'm going to cut a little bit off of one side and the same. I'm leaving about 1/4 inch between the edge of my strips and the black. Now I'll flip this back over and take 2 more pieces. I'm going to take this purple and this green. I'm going to sew these 2 pieces together and then sew this unit. Here, let's get the black out of here. We'll sew this unit to this unit. I've sewn all of my 5 strips together here, and now I'm going to take my black triangle and make sure that it's completely covered by my stripped unit here, that no black is kind of poking out, and it's not. So this looks good. I'm going to sew these pieces together along this edge 1/4 inch. I attached my 2 pieces here and ironed this nice and flat. So now we're going to go ahead and trim this, and this should trim to 6 1/2 inches unfinished. So I'm going to trim off of, I know my triangle is accurate here, so I'm going to trim using my triangle as my straight part, lining that up against these yellow lines, and go 6 1/2 over. And I'll flip it and go 6 1/2 over this way. And there it is. Let me trim my dog ears off here. And here it is. Pretty cool. I'm going to make 3 more of these for a total of 4. And then I have a bunch of pieces here. I think, let's see how many. I have 8 blocks that other guild members have made. So we'll lay these out in a couple combinations so that you can see the different patterns that this block can make. Here are my 4 blocks. I think they came out pretty cool. So this is a really great block exchange. This one in particular, we are doing all kind of cool colors. Not all of them have to be cool. For example, this one has some kind of warmer colors in it, but primarily trying to stick to cool color. Oh, this is not mine. Hold on, let me find the ones that are mine. Here we go. So you can really do this with any kind of strips. You could, they don't have to be cool colors, obviously. You could do just random colors, or you could do batiks, or you could do a certain fabric designer. You could do like all Tula strips, that kind of thing. But let's lay these out now and kind of see what kind of patterns we can make. Or to just line them up, all going the same direction. Let's see how this kind of looks in mass. That looks pretty cool. And then obviously this would dramatically change if you replaced the black with another fabric. The feel of the quilt would really become quite different. Now let's see what happens if we change these into diamonds and see how that would look. I think it's going to be pretty different. Here's the diamonds layout, and then if you made, instead of your black squares all being the same tone, let's say you did blues and you had different tones for each one of those triangles. When they come together in this diamond here, it would kind of make another interesting scrappy block. So that could be kind of cool. Now let's try something else. This layout here I think is pretty dramatic. This might be my favorite one so far. This really large diamond that these pieces make when you put them together is really super cool, and it just looks so much more interesting than if these strips, were all the same, if it was kind of just making a border of strips that were all the same fabric. This scrappy look works really well in this layout, and I can picture it, if you picture this being one block, say, and obviously I didn't have anything to put in these corners here, so you'd have to use your imagination, but if you think of this as one block and then you did, 3 blocks across by 3 down to make 9 blocks, that would be a pretty large quilt, and I think it would just look really cool. You could do a variety of things for the background instead of the black that would all just make it really pop and visually really pleasing. This is a chevron layout. This always makes a really great border. I think it would make a better border perhaps if it was smaller blocks. So this is a pretty easy block to scale down. So that's something to think about, or to even scale up. The chevron is always a super classic block. Flying geese, and if you make them going horizontal, like this, I think they look like mountains, and if you do them in the right color scheme, maybe even at the bottom of a quilt, I think they would really read as mountains. And this is just obviously half of what the diamond that we started with is. And what occurred to me is that, we put our diamonds when we first started right next to each other, but you could also stagger the diamonds, which I think could be kind of cool. Let's see how that looks if we stagger them. It looks a little bit different, and I think a little bit more interesting than just putting them right next to each other, which was this here. Now let's do one more. Really, there's infinite possibilities you can do with this block because of the fact that it really is just a half square triangle. If you think about it, if this was a solid piece of fabric instead of strips, it would just be a half square triangle. And with half square triangles, the possibilities are endless, so you can really have a lot of fun. But let's do one more. We'll end here with one of my favorite blocks, the pinwheel block. This, for some reason, it's a little bit harder to see the pinwheel than with traditional pinwheels. But you can still, if you look at the black pinwheel is actually easier to see than the striped pinwheel. But that adds kind of an interesting circular kind of motion and feel, especially with the stripes. It's really cool. Now, the other thing that you could do with your blocks is, instead of having one full piece of a triangle on the other side, is you could just continue stripes and make the stripes a different color. So you could do, for example, all red stripes going up this way and all cream or white stripes going down this way, or red and blue, or any contrasting colors. And that would visually have the same effect and would make it even scrappier. Though I think the solid piece kind of adds some stability, makes it a little bit less crazy in a good grounding kind of way. But thank you for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm also on Instagram. My Instagram handle is mostly quilts by Nora, and I'll see you next time.